get it.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Feeling really good.
Yeah, you're looking good. I'm doing pretty well. We were talking before we started recording. I had a weird night.
Yeah.
Some muscle cramps. Didn't get a lot of sleep, but I'm feeling good. We're rallying.
Yeah, man.
You look great.
Thank you, brother.
As always.
Thank you, man.
Where is this from?
This shirt that I'm wearing is bootleg Burberry from China.
I was really hoping you were going to say it was bootleg.
Oh, it's bootleg. This is Jockey Club edition. I don't even know what that is. It might be polo. I don't know.
So talk about the bootleg markets for a second, because we've talked a little bit about it, but I want to hear, like, that's like a main reason you're going to Asia, right? Like that's like a bonus.
The shows are third on the tier. It goes bootleg, food, and then shows. Yeah. I mean, that was a joke, but honestly, I love going to Asia. The scene right now is amazing out there. Like, it feels like how EDM was kind of bubbling in the States a few years ago or whatever. Like, it just has a different, fresh vibe. Everyone's really inspired. So going there is dope. I love to do that. And then I get to go shop for all the bootleg stuff, which is like one of my favorite things. Like, get the fake Gucci, fake Louis, or even like the fake Supreme. Like, they have like all the misspelling bootleg stuff is like my favorite.
Well, because that's almost like, it's like so wrong that it comes back around to being really dope.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And they'll do these collabs, like Burberry Gucci collabs, like that never would happen.
Right.
And they're
it's
so
like some
fire.
alternate reality shit.
Dude, I actually almost, if they weren't going to fall apart because they're so bad, they made these like Yeezy slides. Like they were fully Adidas branded. I'll show you on my phone in a minute. But they're fully Adidas branded. They had the Yeezy sole and the Yeezy fabric, but there were slides that never have existed ever. But they were so fire. And like, I don't know, these companies should actually take that, like the bootleg cue, and reintegrate it into their company.
Yeah, exactly, man, because that's the new rarity. You know, it's like scarcity is what makes all of these brands so powerful.
Definitely,
and controlling it. But it's like, you know, for now, we're in LA. Like, if you want to go get Supreme or whatever, there's like a store, you know where to go get it.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to get the Supremes, you can't get that.
Yo, exactly,
you know?
Man. I'm flexing on everyone.
It's not a bad idea for brands in general. It's like have one place in the world.
Ooh,
like make it like, because you know everything's global now. You can get things shipped, but like, what if you actually had to travel somewhere to go get it? You know,
dude, that'd actually be a good idea. It would be kind of like how Supreme is very exclusive and stuff like that. And of course, just like that, everything would get bought up and then resold at a higher price. But it's worth it. It's that rarity. That's so cool.
Yeah, I like that, man.
Down.
Well, and we are in LA right now, and you're a new LA resident, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I moved out here in January, but I've been on the road since January. But I finally got a house at the end of August, and I'm official now. I got my California ID.
Oh, there you
I went surfing. I'm official.
Oh, wait, you actually went surfing?
Yeah.
We talked about you were going to.
Yeah, I've been going like every weekend. So this past weekend was my second weekend. I'm still a grom. I'm still like, I don't know. I'm still trying to learn how to do it, but it's good.
That's dope, man. That's, you know, integrating into the Cali lifestyle.
Definitely, yeah. I've got the diet changed. I've got the surfing. Like, I'm just doing the whole Cali thing. I got a nice little base coat of tan. So
right. Has it been being out here, has it been affecting how you work and your creativity? Like, do you notice a difference from when you were living in the Midwest or on the East Coast?
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel a little more chill and a little more comfortable in my own skin, I guess. Like, when I was living in the Midwest, it was nothing but natural vibes and like creative, and I had a bunch of good people around me that just like helped me create. And then on the East Coast, it kind of like pushed me to work harder and like grind. And then I came out here and I don't have the push, but I have the New York state of mind of just like, I got to grind, I got to keep grinding. But there's something about the energy here in LA that just makes me relax and just like kind of take it at my own pace. And it's a good contrast. And like right now I'm trying to find this balance in my life. And I think out here is a good balance coming from New York to this Cali vibe to chill it out and focus.
Yeah, man. And it's interesting because LA, I think for musicians, for people doing what we do, it can feel overwhelming and stressful just because everybody's here.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's something about the vibe here. Maybe it's even just like the traffic. It's like everybody is running around trying to do shit, but like it just takes a long time.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
Maybe that's part of it, because you're right. Like, I'll come out here, and you know, I live in San Diego. I'm a couple hours away, and San Diego is like the chillest place in the world.
Yeah.
But I'll come up here, and my anxiety will go up a little bit because you do have that sense of like it's just all happening all around you. But then at the same time, like in a day in LA, like you can really only do like a couple things.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah, I noticed that with a lot of the people I get into sessions with too. Like if they meet up with me for a session, that's like the one big thing they're doing. So they kind of make it count, and they do, I don't know, they put a little more effort in once they get there.
Yeah, that's a good point too, right? It's a commitment.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to spend your day doing a session with Flosstradamus, like that is your whole day.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
you can't just sort of like in Chicago, I feel like, I mean, most of us didn't even have studios back then.
Yeah.
But, you know, you would just go over to your friend's house, you work on something for an hour or two, you go get a hot dog, you know, whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like that here. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm liking it. It's just it's a good change of pace, man. And it's like you were saying, like you meet up for these sessions. I feel like out here, there's just so many more people in the industry. And then for Chicago, for us, it might have been where we were at in our careers and things like that, but it was just, you only had a few people, a handful of people, you work with them and then you keep it moving. And out here, there's so many different types of people doing so many different types of music.
Yeah.
And so I can have a session with a person who does house music and I can vibe off of them and learn their process and make some cool different music. And then I can meet up with just a straight up songwriter and get inspired on how it is to actually write a song and like what goes behind the lyrics and the melodies and things like that. And I've just been learning so much more since I've been out here. It's almost like I'm back in school again, more than actually completing music. I'm just out here learning because there's just a diverse amount of musicians.
It's crazy how you can just keep humbling yourself that way.
Yeah.
Like I've experienced that so many times in my career, and I'm sure I'll experience it a million more times where, you know, you achieve whatever the next rung on the ladder is, whatever that goal you were dreaming about years ago, and then you get there and you just look up at the next one and you realize that, you know, it's not even really a ladder, it's more just like a big open space and there's a million people running around. This metaphor is getting weird.
No, I like it. I like it. No, it's true. I think anything in life you should, I mean, you can live life however you want, but like what I like about life is you can learn. You're constantly learning, whether that's with yourself and self-development or even just like in our industries and things that we're doing. Like I love things like YouTube and like iTunes University and even podcasts because you can do these things. You can constantly intake information and learn and grow as a person while you're like doing something else or while you, I don't know, you can just, we're in such a great time to learn and educate ourselves and grow. And I think that's such a good thing for people right now.
I agree. And especially for guys like you and me who didn't really have formal training for what we're doing now, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I mean, we came up like I saw you learn, you saw me learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. And in those days, there weren't even really like a lot of YouTube tutorials.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of making it up, right? And at the time, I remember personally that felt really frustrating to me because I would hear all these things that I didn't know how to make and kind of I didn't know who could even tell me how to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
But now I think maybe it's an advantage because of what you were just talking about, that I still am kind of hungry to learn it, you know?
Yeah.
And as long as I don't get too much in my own head about it, you know, you can just kind of keep taking everything in. It's like it's like bringing yourself back to being that kid again, you know?
And I think that now it's true. Like, I don't know, you're like, I still don't know what's going on. I'll admit that I don't know how to do half the things I do, but it's cool with technology and you can do advanced things with technology. If you embrace technology, you can be so much more powerful. Like I think it was in the Elon Musk podcast with Joe Rogan. He was talking about how we're becoming more like an Android because we have like smartphones, because that piece of technology is combining with us. Like if you want to know about like what movies Tom Hanks was in or whatever, you can find it out and then it instantly makes you that much smarter overall. So I think that we can do that with music and with learning a lot of this stuff. Like you said, when you were trying to learn how to maybe compress or like do something like learn like how to make fidget house stuff or whatever, it was hard to do it back in the day. You could only learn from your friends and a little bit of things on the internet. And it was a lot of like past things that had happened, like old mixing engineers and a lot of old stuff.
Yeah.
But now you can use everyone. There's like a 12-year-old kid who knows how to mix and engineer better than I would ever know how to do. And he puts up a tutorial and I learn from him and we can learn from each other and grow. And not only that, we can use technology to our advantage to make us better. Like I have a bunch of apps that help me do chord progressions and these things that I couldn't even do with my physical hands.
Right.
But I can use my taste making ability to choose chords and to use these tools to make it so I actually sound like a better musician. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because and this is not in any way shitting on classically trained musicians of whom I am very envious of.
Same.
But,
same.
But I like what you're saying because there's something about the way that you and I and a lot of other people that we know like see music, and there's something about it that clicks in our brains, right? And because we're not, you know, classical pianists or whatever, it can be hard to translate that. But I think what you're saying is, you know, that technology can kind of bridge that gap, right?
Yeah.
And you can be sort of, it's almost like, I always say this, like the best DJs are the best curators.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's the same for production in a lot of ways, is you can kind of have this vision in your head of what the final product should sound like. Yeah. And whatever ways you need to get there, you know, that's sort of just your secret sauce.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a lot of people are ashamed of using those tools. Like me personally, I'm not. Like I've always tried to embrace technology and use it to my advantage. Like, and I think that if someone were to see me using these apps to like generate these chord progressions, I think that maybe there'd be a little bit of like a, I don't know, an interior like dissing or whatever that they would do. But to me, it's almost like I'm collaborating with a computer to get my idea out. Whether I'm working with a songwriter out here in LA who knows how to play the same dope chords, and I can hum the idea or think the idea with them, it's just a human doing the same thing. So why not collab with the computers and the technology to get my idea across the same way? And so that's what I'm doing. But I think that's happened with everything. Even back in the day, like using vinyl. Yeah. When Serato came out, it was like, I remember I embraced it like early on. Actually, it was, what was it? So before Tractor, there was Final Scratch. That's what it was called. So I ended up getting Final Scratch before even Serato. And it was like this little UFO disc thing. And you had to patch it in and it barely worked. And the technology was so primitive. It like kind of worked back in the day. Yeah. And then things like Serato came out and we ended up using that and making things your crate that you would have to carry out to a gig just became exponential, and you could do so much more with it. And a lot of the old heads around me are like, oh, yo, that's whack. That's whack.
Right.
And then come to find out X amount of years later, they're the ones using the same technology because they saw the potential of it.
Exactly. And, you know, some people came around faster, some people came around slower, but it's the exact same thing of what you were just saying. Now, if somebody saw you using an app to work on a chord progression, I'm sure there would be people being like, oh, that's lame, you know, whatever. But for you, while you were talking, you made me remember, I don't know why this always sticks in my head, but there was this one interview that you did years and years and years ago, and I randomly saw it somewhere, and they were asking, this is when you were still a duo, and they were asking you and Josh something about, you know, how do you something as professional musicians or something, and you almost like cut the guy off, and you're like, yo, we're not musicians, we're hackers.
Yeah, that's true.
And like you were like so definitive about it. I remember just watching that and it just blew my mind. I like replayed it a bunch of times. It got me so fired up because I think that's what you've always been on in a way, is like always finding the new shit. Like to me, that's what I think of when I think of you, is like that excitement of discovery, of always, you know, the cutting edge of what's coming next. Even like with Final Scratch, maybe it doesn't even work that good at first, but for you it's kind of that process of always pushing it, always being on the edge. It seems like, I mean, would you agree that that's part of what sort of keeps you here, keeps you doing what you're doing?
1000%. Like I'll spend more time on trying to find shortcuts on how to make music than actually learning how to do music, like, which is probably so backwards. If I spent that amount of time like learning chord progressions and stuff, I could probably do so much different things. Yeah. But I love that. I love that, discovering these apps and these different things that can make it so I can cheat code my way through my music process. And I'm constantly trying to either develop them with companies, or finding companies that have like a primitive version and working with them and how they can make it better and into my working process. And I've always loved that. Like I honestly, like I'll spend most of the time when I'm home off the road digging for music and trying to find like a next sound, because I get so like bored with what's happening right now. Like I just like when I get comfortable, I get uncomfortable. And so I think that that's how it is. Like I'm constantly digging for new music, different sounds. Same with these apps. I'm trying to find new ways to do like next level things. And that's honestly where I spend most of my time, is because whenever I find that, it just feels so good.
Yeah,
it's such a cool thing.
yeah.
And then one other thing too, I like to put people up on it. Then I'll show you. I'm like, yo, Willy, check out this new thing. This will help your working process, because all together we can create, like if I can show you my tools, you can create something even more exponential from there, and we all help each other out.
Exactly. And especially when it's, you know, new technology, something fresh, then there's no rules yet, right? So everybody starts using it in a different way. You start innovating, like, you know, it becomes this new knowledge base. It's like what we were saying earlier, when we started like DJing, there was no roadmap for any of it, right? And when we started producing, there was no roadmap for any of it. So we all had these crazy different methods, and we could kind of share those tips and tricks. I mean, what do you remember about, you know, pre-Serato days, because you and I, like, we're old heads in the game at this point. You know, what do you remember about just the vinyl days?
My back remembers it. I'm definitely, it was just like, it was wild, man. So like, if you wanted to play a certain song, sometimes you had to go and buy the full album, and you had to like, I remember I always wanted to play like Spodioti Dopalicious from Outkast.
Right.
And I couldn't find the vinyl at the local record store for the single.
Right.
So like I had to carry around the 12-inch, the full-on album, and it was 2 vinyl. And so there's that. And then on top of that, I had to do that for, you know, the rest of the 50 other songs. And so,
and then when you're at a gig, you know, it's even, not only do you have to physically take the record, put it on, blah, 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 but then there's 6 different tracks on the record if you've got the album version.
Exactly.
Right?
And you might have grabbed the wrong vinyl. Like, I wish I could go back and like listen or like watch myself DJ from them, because now the rate that I load songs up is so fast, and I'm playing like seconds of each song, like so quick, that like back then it must have been an eternity.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Because you had to find the song, it was probably by the third verse by the time I could even like mix the next song.
Do you think that changed the club? I mean, obviously it changed the club experience, but I'm thinking in terms of like going to a club and hearing a song. Like, there probably were years of my life where I did know the third verses of songs, just because that's how you had to play them in the club.
I love that era of hip hop, they would call out the verse 3. They'd be like, yo, verse 3, and like actually say like the number of verses.
Yeah, it was like a flex.
Yeah, exactly. But now, I mean, you can't even get to verse 3. You can't even get, like, sometimes, like,
there is no verse 3 anymore.
I won't even play verse 1 sometimes. If I'll play like hook after hook sometimes. It's just,
well, I mean, we're at 2018 is the year of a 2-minute song.
Yeah, exactly,
like,
man.
2-minute 30 song is long.
Yeah, man. I mean, every Low Pump song is just a big hook, and like it's so quick. So, yeah, I don't know. But another thing that I liked about vinyl, which I'm missing out on, and it's just like it's such a great thing about it, is you can go digging and finding music that like no one's ever heard. And that's the benefit of like vinyl and all of that, like, which I've lost the art of. Like I barely go digging for records anymore. Like I just don't have the time. But I would love that. Couple of things. So like back in the day, I was broke, like super broke. And Chicago Gramophone Records, shout out Gramophone, they had this area called the cutout bin. And I always wanted to play hip hop. And so underneath the table, so there'd be a bunch of the hip hop up top. Yeah. And the records were like, for me, it was expensive, but like $6 at the time or whatever. And I was like, I can't do this. And then underneath the table is the cutout bin. And that's how I found out about like Slip and Slide, about like crunk music, about Lil Jon, like all these dudes, like TVT Records. They would have all the Lil Jon records, all the crunk records underneath for 99 cents. And so like, it was the craziest thing. I would like dig under there and find all this dope music, and it had the dopest instrumentals, like all this Southern trap music. And this was like early trap before it was trap, it was crunk. Yeah. And like the music was so dope to me. And the cool thing was that I could mix it with, I would go over to the house section and grab some house music records. And then that's like double time of this crunk. And then I'd be mixing like Cashmere's Percolator with like Lil Jon, like whatever, Snap Your Fingers type song. Yeah. And it was just such a cool way, the halftime of the crunk. And the sounds were like both synthetic and it just worked. And this was happening in an era of like atmosphere and like backpack rap, where like if I even put a Lil Jon record on, it was like taboo.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was like such a cool thing to hear that contrast and how much they're very similar. And they're both, it's both urban music. Cashmere's Percolator is urban music, and like Lil Jon, like crunk music is like urban music, and it just worked, and it was such a vibe together.
Yeah, man, it's those connections are so interesting because all of that music was probably made by similar means too, right? Like it's somebody sitting in front of a computer, sitting in front of some gear, you know, in whatever neighborhood they're from, whatever part of the country, but it's all the same process.
Yeah.
I wonder too, you just made me think about, you know, you saying the cheap records were the ones you bought because that's what you could afford, and that ended up influencing your sound.
Yeah.
I wonder if, and I'm not a historian, so I'm not qualified to actually speak on this, but I'm wondering if like that was like a marketing technique. Like I wonder if they priced their records lower so people would buy them more.
Maybe.
Or if it was like, you know, another purist thing where those kind of records were looked down on, right?
Yeah.
And so all of those records got shoved off to the side until somebody like you or me came and found it and could kind of flip it into this whole other thing, which is really interesting because, you know, we've been talking about like people hating on you at different points for, you know, doing something the wrong way, quote unquote, or not the traditional way, even like with the backpack rap, and then you play the crunk stuff instead.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it was really that attitude that like spurred the next generation of artists making the music that was being hated on, or us playing it and kind of being looked down on. Like I never really thought about that, but maybe I did have some attitude about that.
Yeah, I think it's just natural for humans to be afraid of change. I think it's just, that's even what it is. Even me, sometimes I get that way with certain things, but I don't. That's always what changes anything in culture. And if you want to change things in culture, you got to get the pushback. And like anything anyone has done, it always gets pushback, gets hated on, and then all of a sudden it gets accepted by the masses. There's a curve, like what's the name of the guy's curve? I don't know. You can find it on the internet. But there's like a curve, like a curve of early adopters, laggards, and all of that. And most human beings are later on the curve. Like a huge majority, a huge percentage of humans are later in this curve. And then there's certain people that like to adopt things early on. And those are the people that are always pushing things, but they're also getting the blowback and the pushback. But that's the stuff that's always changing what culture is. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's absolutely necessary. And you see what happens to the, you know, the purists and the haters, quote unquote, for lack of a better word. There's a moment, and we've seen it, both of us, happen to so many people, where at a certain point, an artist will just hit a limit of frustration about whatever it is, you know, changing times, that maybe they're not into the new thing. Maybe they feel like they can't keep up. Maybe it's competitive, whatever it is. But, you know, some people kind of mentally jump the shark at a certain point and get bitter and just start sort of saying that everything after this point is bad, you know, and it was only good up to this point. And I mean, history shows us what happens to those people, right?
Exactly.
Like I relate to those feelings. We've all been there mentally at a certain point about one thing or another, but you have to keep making yourself uncomfortable, like you said earlier, right? Like, because we're still here, we're still doing this, and you and I both know, like, our careers have had ups and downs and crazy tangents and side turns, but if we hadn't kept jumping back into the game, like back into the race, you know, we'd just be halfway back on the sidelines somewhere.
Definitely. And I think as an artist, even like a tip to anyone who's out there, like, when Josh and I first started doing EDM trap, like our incarnation of it, at the time it was the first wave of dubstep, and it got to the point of what they call bro step, and it just got so hard, and it didn't fit for me as like a 30-year-old dude or whatever at the time, or like 20-something-year-old dude. I just couldn't vibe with it. And in my mind, I was doing that hater stuff at first with it. I was like, I can't vibe with this. I don't understand it.
Right.
And on some crazy shit, when I heard Skrillex's Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites the first time, I was like, what is going on? It blew my mind. And the funny thing is that song sounds soft in comparison to music now, which is so weird. And I really love that song now. But like when I first heard it, it was so different, and I couldn't embrace it. But for me, I could have said, yo, like, fuck this shit, fuck dubstep, I'm done with the game. But what I did is just like, I'm gonna not do dubstep because I can't vibe with it right now at this time, and I'm gonna try to do something different, and like, let me like fuck around and put some like trap drums over some like big room house. And then that's kind of how like the EDM trap stuff started. It was like, I'm not going to do the crazy growls and stuff, things that I didn't even know how to make. And even that stuff at the time, there wasn't that many tutorial videos, so I didn't know how to do a lot of the dubstep sounds. So I was like, let me just take the tools that I know and kind of like create this lane, so I don't have to do what everyone in the game is doing. I can do what I want to do. And I think any artist out there like watching this and listening is like, just, you don't have to do what's popping right now. If you don't vibe with it, don't do it. Try to take a note from it and then carve your own lane out of what you don't like and do like about it. And that's kind of what we did.
Two things about what you just said is that, first of all, I don't think you should ever go into it thinking I'm going to do what's popping right now.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I think
it's
that's
too
always,
late already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like if that's your mindset, you already lost the game.
Exactly.
Because, you know, if something's already popping, that already means that somebody has gotten successful doing it, and they're the one that is associated with whatever that is. So it's, you know, maybe you could get in, kind of ride the wake behind them, but it's, you know, it's a losing game. And the second thing I wanted to talk about is that what I loved a lot about those early trap years and that explosion that you guys started. But what I love the most about what you and Josh did when the whole EDM trap thing started is that because I knew you guys for years and we came up together, shared a lot of experiences, you were just doing what you had always been doing, right? Like it was revolutionary to combine the sounds that you did in the way that you did it. But for me, looking deeper into it, you know, you guys had already been putting sounds together. You were just talking about going to the record store, vinyl days, and, you know, finding these two things and putting them together and seeing what happened. And so to me, it was just, you know, somehow maybe you'd had enough experience at that point to kind of execute it better, or maybe it was just right time, right place. Like, do you think about that in terms of like how that moment happened?
I think we just actually had time. Like it was weird because like you said, Josh and I were DJing for almost like 5+ years, touring DJing. Like we did a couple of mixtapes and we had a party that got popular, and we were able to tour around on that, like do the equivalent party in other cities. So we were able to do these shows everywhere, and we were like on the road constantly. And it just got to the point where we got burnt out, and our sound, everything just kind of got burnt out, and dubstep was popping off, and the stuff we were doing like party rocking DJs wasn't popping anymore. And so less people came to the parties. We've played Denver X amount of times. Like we've done it so much that like it just didn't have that buzz anymore.
Right.
We didn't have music to support who we were as artists. We were just these DJs that were doing this party rocking stuff. And so we fell off, and in like end of 2009, all of 2010, it was just like no shows for us. So we had nothing but time. And so we both like honed our production skills, and we started to like learn more about engineering and learn more about just like, I don't know, just how to make music. And the stuff that we knew how to do from the early days was mashups and edits and things like that. So that's kind of what we were doing. We were taking the sounds that we would DJ, whether that be house music or big room house or anything, and then like Waka Flocka and inspirations of Lex Luger and even the drum kits that were out there, the free drum kits, like the Lex Luger drum kits, just putting those sounds over the top of house music and things like that, but taking out the house drums, or even just filtering it out, like some hardstyle, just filtering out the hardstyle drums, and the synths are just so next level and crazy. And we were just kind of experimenting, and that's what happened. We started putting those up on SoundCloud, and it started to create a whole new sound, but that was us just making like these edits and these like things like that. And so it wasn't even like we're going to try to do something. It was like, it was just a process of like, we got to showcase our process. And luckily we had a little bit of a fan base beforehand that I think helped when we did put the music out, get it to that extra point. Like if we didn't have Floss 1.0, the 2.0 stuff wouldn't have probably not been as poppin'.
Sure.
And so,
and you wouldn't have known how to capitalize on it.
Exactly.
Right?
And that was the other thing that I was going to get to is like because we had fallen off so hard in like in 2010 era, like we knew what it was like to lose this. Like we lost it. It was done. And we were like considering going and working at like jobs and stuff, like actual jobs.
Yeah.
And then when we actually had a shot, it was like, hey, the door opened again a little bit. And him and I just like went in and we got sober and we just like grinded so hard for like 2 years. We built up a crazy fan base. We built up a scene. We started designing clothes and we just like capitalized. Anything we knew that we ruined or didn't do right in Floss 1.0, Floss 2.0 we took and just like ran with it. And
one thing that stood out to me in those first couple of years was how detail oriented you got about everything.
Yeah.
Like from everything. Like I remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, one South by Southwest down in Austin, it was basically the Floss 2.0 coming out party. I think it was like the first time you guys had played after the music had started to blow up.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's some little bar, probably like 100 capacity spot, and you guys were there. I think you didn't even really know how to do the show yet. Like I remember you had like a bunch of controllers.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I remember was that the room was packed. It was split 50-50. It was like a weird club where you were kind of in the middle.
Oh,
and
cool.
So like there were like 50 people just in the crowd, and then there were like 50 DJs behind you. Just like I remember it was like me like smashed next to Diplo, like it was just like shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. But everybody from that scene and that era was in that room. At least that's what it felt like for that performance. Like, do you remember the night I'm actually talking about? Or am I making this up?
No, you're not. And I do remember a lot of that, like especially the early incarnation of Floss 2.0. It was, I never felt so good during that. That's like my Uncle Rico time. There
was like an energy about it.
Yeah, it was this. I think that, like you said, a lot of the DJs were in that room, and then there was a lot of the crowd there. But all the DJs in that room, I think, had the same mindset or the feeling that maybe Josh and I had of like, we can't ride with this bro step, EDM, dubstep stuff right now. Like they're all ex-hip hop heads or used to play hip hop and mashup dudes. And I think that this was like the first time that this was a music that they could actually latch onto and feel comfortable with. There was that, and there was just this energy. Like everything that we did in Floss 2.0 was just natural. It just felt so natural. Like nothing was forced. Like everything was just like such a vibe. It like what we did as Flosstradamus when we came back up, it was bigger than just one song or one thing that we had. It was like, it was me working my ass off, Josh working his ass off, and we like built this entire movement, and it was just natural. It wasn't like forced. We weren't trying to do what other people were doing because there was nothing ahead of us to do. We had to define our path.
Right. There was no roadmap.
Yeah, there was, and that was so cool, man.
And even social media was like not really as crazy as it is now.
Yeah, everything's a cookie cutter now with so much, and that's kind of hindering about technology and the internet and stuff. Like there is, as much as I like to embrace it all, there's now all these formulas. Oh, you need to, if you're an EDM artist, if you're an artist right now, you need to have a fan base, and your fan base is called whatever you want to call it.
Hashtag whatever,
hashtag whatever it is. And then they need to have a look, and they need to wear the clothes and all of this stuff. And the stuff that we were doing when we had Hoodie Nation and we had like all of this, like we had all the little hashtag plurnt and all these are just words that we made up, and these are things that we were just doing naturally. And now everyone is doing it because they have to. It's like a thing you need to do, and you need to like follow this formula.
Which is kind of fake though, right?
Exactly,
because you know, you're saying it's like you need to, but I think what it really is like you feel pressure that you need to, right?
Man, it's weird. And for me,
because what you really,
go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but like, because what you really need to do for like a new artist is throw all that shit away, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, that's what excites me about a new artist is seeing that they're not doing that they're doing something different from what everybody else is. Which sounds obvious to say, but that is the hardest thing I think to understand as a new artist.
Yeah. As even a person too, to do like not what the masses are doing. It's so hard to.
It's what you were saying earlier, like, you know, people don't like change. The early adopters are few and far between.
Yeah, it's weird. And to just speak on the social media thing, like it got to a point, yeah, it was all natural. Like anything that we posted, anything we talked about our fan base, things like that, it was just so natural. And now, since everyone is doing the cookie cutter formula, like it's weird. Like I'm sure people watching this will see that like I'm not like super interactive on my social media as much as I was before, because I just can't vibe with it as much because everyone's doing the same thing. And it gets me back to that same thing that I felt like when everyone was doing dubstep and things like that. Like I just feel uncomfortable. Like I try to play the game here and there, but it just doesn't feel natural. And like I might be losing followers and things like that because I'm not playing the game, but like for me, I'm actually more at peace than I've ever been right now.
Yeah.
Like kind of avoiding social media. It's a very toxic place right now. And it's like, and I'm just like kind of like keeping one foot in, one foot out with it right now. And I don't know what to do and I don't know what is next. But just for my comfort, I need to like kind of like distance myself from it at the moment.
Well, of course. And what that makes me think of is what you just said about when you and Josh had that time off, right? And you kind of like hit a bottom and you took a step back. That's when this huge thing happened. Like that's when, you know, you left space for the next part of your life to come along, right? Yeah. Like I think stepping out of the rat race, like once you realize that it is a rat race and that everybody's just kind of like in line behind each other, like it's almost like seeing through the Matrix in a weird way. Like, because once you can, and this is a very hard thing to do, and it's something that's way easier for me to say than for me to actually do. But if you can mentally take yourself out of it and let yourself feel uncomfortable and let yourself feel like you're fucking up and like that you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. If you're able to sit in those feelings and just let them happen and then see what happens after that, to me that's, you know, when the real creativity and just when the real exciting shit can happen.
Definitely, man. And this is a weird association of the two, but you and I are both Midwest dudes, and we both, you probably more than me, but we both like have grown up where we have 8 months of depressing winter. And there's something about, like, I think that's why a lot of people in Chicago are nice. Like, yeah, they call it Chirac and there's a lot of like bad things that are happening there, but there's also a lot of like, I don't know, camaraderie with each other, and there's a lot of respect. And I think to take what I'm saying is like, we live through every year, we go through 8+ months of like depressing winter, and there's a beautiful moment, the snow falls, it's nice, and then it just gets gloomy and depressing. But I think because we do that every year, it reminds us like when summer comes, it just feels so good and it's so beneficial. And I think that we have it in, it's like muscle memory in us Midwesters, that it's like you go through the hard times and then out of the hard times come the good. And I think that that's like a thing with anything in life. Like every time I've even just recently went through a huge hard time, and like I know that there's going to be nothing but good things coming from that. And I think that with social media and things like that, it just puts out this forward facing, everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. But in real life, there's not always good. It's always ups and downs. And if you go through the downs, you're gonna enjoy the ups, and the ups are gonna be even more like lucrative, whatever. All of the buzzwords are gonna be so much better.
Whatever you want it to be.
Even if it isn't like success and stuff like that. Me personally, going through the downs, I've been able to enjoy the ups, even if it's a little bit of an up. Even if it's like I'm playing to a room of 5 people, and then all of a sudden I'm playing to a room to 100 people. Those 100 people just feel so good, and that struggle that I had to go through to get the 100 fans again, like I appreciate it so much more.
And that's what brings people together too, right? Is if you go through those hard times with people, you know, to go back to your like winter analogy. Like I think about the early Chicago days with, you know, you and me and Kid Sister and the Cool Kids and a million other people I'm forgetting to name. But, you know, that felt like a family, you know, like that felt like we were all kind of held together by something that I didn't understand at the time. But I think you're right that like the weather was a part of it. And, you know, you think about out here, every DJ in the world is living in LA right now, but it doesn't feel like a family.
It's weird, you know?
And I think there's something to that because we kind of shared that experience in those formative years. I mean, and I wanted to go back and talk about those early parties too, because I think that's where the spirit of everything, that even what you're doing now, like that's where it all started, right? And, you know, I talked earlier that you were detail oriented about what you were doing. And I think, to me, you've always been that way a little bit. Like I remember, you know, the early parties were the get out of the hood parties. And even when they were in some tiny bar with, you know, whatever, 75 people or whatever it was, there were always, you guys always had these little touches, right? And to me, it was like always, like I can look back on it and it was always predicting what was going to come later on. Like I remember one party that either I opened for, or maybe I just went to the party, I don't remember, but you guys had, you built like a UFO.
Oh yeah.
That like was suspended above the DJ booth in some super dangerous lawsuit situation. Yeah. And even that to me, and I want you to talk about that in a sec, but all I wanted to say is that to me was like, even back in those days, like that was the early stage production that now everybody has, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was something special about what you guys were doing that maybe not everybody else was doing, was there are these little details, these little touches, just something to bring it to the next level. And I don't know, was that a conscious thing? Like, how did that happen for you guys?
Again, it goes back to just like people being creative or whatever. Like if something is happening, just tweak it a little bit. And so those parties you were talking about, so like normally people would do DJ parties and they would rent a venue and be on the stage. And so what we did is, instead of being on the stage, let's just set it up in the middle of the dance floor. Let's be right in the middle. So we set it up in the middle of this venue and everyone was around us, and that just had an energy. And then we teamed up with my super good friends, these dudes called Thunder Horse.
Shout out to Thunder Horse.
Yeah, shout out them, man. Alex and Taran and Jude. Those guys would, again, it was just back to us just being fun, creative, like kids together in Chicago. Like we would just all get together and think of ideas, like just weird, ridiculous ideas. Like how can we make this stage setup crazy? And we would, back in the day, we would get sponsorships from like Pabst Blue Ribbon or like Sparks or like all these, all these random companies would sponsor these parties, and they'd give you like whatever, like under $1,000 or whatever. So we would have to find a way to like use that budget and do something creative with it. Before they would give anyone a budget and they wouldn't do it, they'd do some whack idea, but we're like, let's do some next level stuff. So we would do that. That's why we would build the UFO, or we built for the Christmas party, we had a giant Santa who just spit snow out on the crowd. We would just like, it would just be fun. How can we use this budget and create this environment? But yeah, just like it's just all about just tweaking things a little bit, and that's all that we would do. And then, like you said, it's kind of what evolved into like the new Floss shows, like our stage design and all the new Floss stuff, Floss 2.0, 3.0. We would always try to just do next level things. So when we first came back on the scene as Floss 2.0, everyone had the big LED screens, everyone had like crazy light shows and lasers, and we're like, let's just remove all of that. So we would come on stage, the screen would turn off, and we would just have two black lights facing us and then strobe lights behind us.
That period of shows, man, those were some of the most intense shows.
It was crazy. Like I hacked my mixer because like at the time, Josh and I were using two Ableton controllers and a 900 mixer. And the crossfader wasn't being used because we were just using the volume faders. So I rigged up this USB thing that the crossfader was actually controlling the like strobe light intensity. So while one of us was mixing music, the other one was doing strobe lights behind us. And then I had another controller on the DJing mixer that was doing black lights on us. And we wore these all black hoodies that had printed on warning signs on the hoodie that were like, I had them made. They were just like warning signs that you couldn't see in the normal light, but when a black light hit it, it illuminated. And so it almost looked like our hoodies were like, were a LED almost.
Right.
And that was the thing, is just taking these little ideas with a little bit of a budget, you can do so much. Like, don't do what everyone's doing. Like if there's all these people playing video clips and stuff, try to do something different. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, that's true, man. And it's so funny because like those shows were low budget, right? Because you were still starting off, but those became the iconic kind of events that I think helped grow your fan base so fast.
I think so too, man. I think a lot of people think it was just like one song or one thing that defined what Flosstradamus was, but we were doing so many cool, creative little things that it is more than that. And it was such a bigger thing than that. Like you can't just claim one thing as what Flosstradamus was, Hoodie Nation was. It was like this huge amount of ideas of just trying to do different things, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think it's, how do I want to say this? Like, I think it's not just about making the hit song or about finding the new genre, right? Because you can see plenty of, you know, producers every single year will have like the one hit song or maybe a string of big songs in a year. But to really build it into a community like you guys did, and like you still continue to do. Like, you know, we haven't even gotten to Floss 3.0, but it's something else, man. And talk a little bit about that community aspect of it too, because I think your fan base is different than a lot of DJs' fan bases.
No, it is, and it's actually kind of awesome. Since I moved out to LA, I'm like, in New York, I maybe saw like 2 people that were actually fans, like actually in public. But out here, something about Cali, I don't know, like the Hoodie Nation fan base is huge out here, and I see so many different types of people. But it's the coolest types of people, man. It's like, I don't know. It isn't like people that I would not expect to be EDM fans at all. Like, I just bought my first car because I live out here, and like the people that were selling my car were like Hoodie Nation fan base people. Dope. And then I went out to eat the other day, and it's like every different type of people. It's like Mexican kids, Asian kids, white kids, black kids. It's like all these different types of people that are fans of this movement that is this Hoodie Nation. And it's such a cool thing to see that it is like all walks of life. Like, it isn't just like an EDM dubstep type cliche person or that. They're all these different people. And I think a fan that would go see Flosstradamus would go see Tiesto, or would go see Waka Flocka, or go see like these other genres of acts.
Well, maybe this is a reach, but to take it back to something we were talking about at the very beginning of this, where you were talking about, you know, the house music records and the crunk records all coming from different places, but ending up, you know, in the same format, in the same DJ set that you were playing. I think that's what you've been able to do with the people who listen to your music too, right?
Yeah,
it's like varied backgrounds, varied geographic locations, all that, but somehow it's more about the attitude and the mentality, right?
I think so. And even the early first 2 or 3 shows of ours in Chicago, like that you had mentioned, it was called Get Out of the Hood. It was the reason why we called it Get Out of the Hood, because it was in Boys Town, which is the gay neighborhood in Chicago. And it was a Grateful Dead bar in the middle of Boys Town. And the type of people that would show up there was seriously all of Chicago. It was like hipster kids to street people to like everybody in between. And once you were in that roof, like nothing mattered.
Yeah.
All lines of social class, race, whatever you are, didn't matter there.
And Chicago is such a segregated city.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And especially in that day.
Chicago, they created a term called hyper-segregation that's only because of Chicago. It's like there's these neighborhoods of borders of people. But yeah, back then it was just like everyone was open-minded, and we brought those people together. And I think that that's what a fan of Hoodie Nation is, and a fan of Flosstradamus is. It isn't just one specific lane. It's someone who's into everything, and you're open-minded to different types of people. Like, you might be like, you might have a friend who supports a different political view, but it doesn't matter. They're still your friend. And that's how I carry myself, no matter what. Like, you can live your life the way you want, as long as it's not like hurting me, and I don't mind. I'm down to help you choose your path in life. And I think that that's like anyone with Hoodie Nation. Like, our logo is just like a warning sign, and that's all it is. If you're part of Hoodie Nation, it's just a warning sign. And I've heard so many stories of someone wearing that at a festival, and then someone else walks up to them and they become friends now. And now they're like going to festivals together, and they're doing things together. And it's all because of just this one thing, that like the music, the movement, everything brings everyone together.
Yeah. So. Well, and let's talk for a minute about another way that I think you were able to kind of bring people together, which is right around, you know, that trap explosion, those first couple of years where you guys really like reinvigorated everything. It's going crazy. You're touring all around. You were also, I think, some of the first people to go to Atlanta, right? Like from the electronic music community, going to the studios in Atlanta, meeting like the current crop of the rappers there, like the Bubbling, the underground shit.
Yeah.
And talk about that a little bit, both in terms of, you know, how did that change your view and what you were doing at the time? And how did you kind of make those connections with the rap community there, the rappers, the producers, all of that, so that they could kind of understand what you were doing and bring them into your world?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, just to be honest, like we kind of just had like a hood pass, like mainly my boy DJ Spins, like he was like #1, and like FKI, like those dudes kind of brought us into the fold. Like we had met. Like, I was really into DJ Spins as like an artist. Like he runs like Hood Rich Radio, and he's like was part of Hood Rich Records and stuff. So he just was always making the illest mixtapes at the time. So when we first did a tour, we wanted to bring him out. And so we reached out and he came on tour with us and we became like super close friends. Like we still stay in touch. He's a homie, but I think because we were just boys, he just like kind of put us in touch with everyone in Atlanta. And so once we started to like talk to them and we talked to like FKI first, and like they would always put us up on who's next. I remember Spins initially was like, yo, you got to check out this dude Casino. And Casino had this song called Diamonds Dripping Wet back in the day.
I remember that song.
And it's just, it was so ridiculous. And to me, I was like, this is crazy. And so when we came to Atlanta, I was like, I got to work with Casino. That was like 100%. Like, I just like, I made sure that like we set that up through Spins. And he made the connection happen. Casino comes out to the studio. And then I had to show him like videos of like our shows just to kind of get an idea of what the energy is. And at first he was probably just like, who are these dudes? Like these random like nerdy dudes. But like he liked the beats. He was like, man, these beats are hard. And so he would like kind of get on it. Like we did a couple of songs and then the beat for Mosh Pit, by then he kind of got the vibe, and we showed him videos of what a mosh pit is. Even on the song, he calls it a marsh pit on our song because he didn't know what it was.
Which I still love.
Yeah. If you listen to the acapella, he says marsh pit. But he still had no idea what it was, but he caught the vibe, he caught the energy, and like him and I were working on the lyrics, and I was like, no, like you got to say it like this, and like you got to like turn up, and like so he would get like the first take of that, it was kind of bland, and then he started to turn up and he got the vibe going. And so that's what it was. We like kind of went to Atlanta through like connects through our homies, and from there we kind of like showed those dudes in Atlanta, these street dudes, like the kind of the vibe that we're on, and the music had such a high energy to it. There was like nothing but to turn up on it. And
yeah.
And same with like Travis Porter and those dudes. Like those dudes are probably some of the most talented musicians in the game. I swear. Like Travis Porter have made so many dope hits, and they're like this like crazy like trap boy band. But those dudes, like we played them a bunch of our beats, and they just rapped over like all these crazy songs. Like I have songs that we haven't even released from them, and everything they did was a smash. And it's just, there's something about Atlanta, man, especially in that era, was like crazy. Like a lot of the Atlanta dudes live out here in Cali now, but like in that era, there was just like so much just like natural swag, like that post Gucci Mane, like Young Thug era when we were in there. Like it was so cool to be different.
And it was sort of before that sound had blown up to the point it is now, right? Like it was just starting to bubble, which makes sense why, you know, you would be attracted to it at that time if you're always like trying to find that energy. But I think that's part of it too, right? Is that like they didn't know where it was going yet either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like you could come in and kind of, you know, like just combine your energies, your vibes without an expectation of like, oh, this has to be a radio smash or something. Yeah,
exactly. You know? Even for, I think, even for those artists and stuff like that, none of that was on their mind. I think everyone was just creating. And I think that that's still there in Atlanta. I still feel like it's in the game a little bit, but I feel like there's a lot of other things now that are like kind of hindering people from being fully creative. I think that they like, it's like the branding, and then there's all these like Spotify playlists. There's all these things that are kind of hindering artists right now, it feels like. Yeah.
I mean, I think you can draw parallels to what's happening in the DJ world too, right?
Yeah.
It's what we were just saying before, is that once people start trying to copy this roadmap or, you know, watch how somebody else got to where they are, which is easy to do when things blow up. You know, I mean, Atlanta music is pop music now.
Yeah, of course.
And DJing is bigger than it's ever been. So, of course, you know, you have these big examples of these successful people, but that's never where the real innovation happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at, like, what Gucci Mane was doing, and like they didn't, there was no roadmap. They were just doing them.
And that shit was so weird at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was what you said before when you first heard Skrillex. Like I remember when I first heard Gucci Mane, and especially I did a remix for Gucci on that first like Diplo mixtape where he had like all these different artists. It was me and Benzi did a remix for Gucci, and so we got the acapella, and like the acapella of him, and that was like peak Gucci, man, you know, years. I was like, I don't even understand. Not only do I not know what the fuck he's talking about, but like I can't even find the rhythm of what he's doing. Like it threw me off in such a crazy way. I'll never forget it. And then we ended up, you know, making a remix and like putting a bunch of, you know, stabs from like UK like garage breakbeat stuff, and sort of like what you were talking about earlier, made this new thing. And it was just so rewarding at that time, right? Because there was just, you know, we didn't have any expectations for it.
Yeah.
The same way I assume you didn't at the time. The same way you were saying the rappers at the time. Like, they were just doing what they thought was dope.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's every genre right now, or in general. Any new genre that comes out, it's just like people just doing what they love. Like, and even with like Lil Peep and stuff like that, he was like, he did some really cool next level things, like combining like more of like a emo pop punk kind of vocal style over trap beats and stuff like that. It's just like that's what it is. It's just tweaking things a little bit and making it your own lane. And
yeah, that's a great way to think about it too, because I think when you tell somebody, don't do what's popular, do something different, that's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, because they don't know what to do.
Right, yeah. But what you said about just tweaking it a little bit, that really is all it takes a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's all it is. And again, you can't force that. Like, you can't be like, okay, I need to tweak it a little bit. Just vibe and see what you like and combine those together.
How are you doing it right now? Like, what, you know, as far as Floss 3.0, right? You know, now Flosstradamus is a solo act. You've been a solo act for a year plus at this point. You know, what's changed for you in that year? How have you found, you know, taking it to a solo project and kind of in that same spirit of everything we've been talking about? Like, what's exciting to you right now?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going back to like the original trap vibes again. Like, I think it feels a lot like it did back when we started this trap. Right now, currently in EDM and in bass music, it's like very dubstep heavy. It's super hard. And again, I'm finding myself like it was when I heard that Skrillex song, not really vibing with a lot of the stuff right now. Like, there's every now and again, there'll be like one rhythm song that I like, or one big dubstep song that I'll like, that'll cross over into my lane. But like, there's a lot of it is just so hard, and the rhythm is so crazy. And even in trap, in EDM trap, a lot of the dudes, the rhythm is just so crazy. And I think it's like these young producer kids are full-on producers. They don't know what it works like in a dance floor.
Right.
And so they make the cool, crazy next level sounds, which I'm into. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy, but I'm trying to find the beat with the head nod. And I just don't, I feel like those songs are dope on creative side, but they won't work in like the crowd setting or like
It's crazy. You said it last night. I tweeted that dance music has kind of forgot about the dance part.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of people tweeting back. I didn't really phrase it well, but I got a bunch of people tweeting back at me being like, you know, yeah, fuck dubstep or something. And I was like, no, man, like dubstep is dope. And I want to make sure that we put that out there, because I feel like people could think we're hating on it. Like all that kind of stuff, rhythm, dubstep, like I fuck with all of that heavy, but it's exactly what you were saying earlier about curating it and fitting it into your vibe.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing for me when I said like they forgot about the dance part. It's really just for me, like I need something that I know is going to work in my own DJ set, which is going to be my vibe, which is basically something, you know, I can move with, something that, and there's a history to it too, right? Yeah. Like we've been party rockers for, you know, goddamn 20 years. I don't know. Old man status.
You guys can't see the hairline. Yeah, it's definitely going back.
But yeah, man, what are you working on right now?
Yeah, I'm just making like a lot of like kind of the, like I said, more of like a just trap sound, like bringing it back to the roots of the EDM trap stuff, and even just doing a lot of like vocal chops and doing things like how it was when we first started coming out, and like trying to step away from, again, the hard, for all the nerds out there, like serum sounds, like the sounds that are making dubstep and this hybrid trap dubstep, like super abrasive metallic sounds. I'm trying to just go back to chopping up samples and doing things that I did to explore when I was making trap originally. And that's what I've been doing lately, is just like really going through all of my sample libraries I've collected over the past 20 years and just finding really cool sounds and manipulating those in a way. And that's kind of where I'm just exploring with it. And like, I'm also just like, that's for like the floss sound, but I'm also like stepping out, and I've always made house music on the side. Like I've always just like loved making house.
Yeah, you did a house remix for me back in the day.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is. And like I'm always just making, I don't know, like there's so much unreleased stuff that I've done, and like I just don't see myself putting it out as floss, so I might put it out as something else. But like 90% of the times when I'm experimenting and like learning new plugins and finding things, I'm making a house music song. And so that's just like another thing. And lately I've just been kind of I've had my first month off in like a long time.
Yeah, because you've been on the road heavy.
Yeah, I've seriously been touring for the past 13 years with like breaks here and there. And I have a break right now. And it's just like, right now I've just been experimenting and just making a bunch of things that I vibe with.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of been it. And like,
and that's what, again, earlier, we already talked about the last time that happened, right?
Yeah.
And what came out of that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's not like I'm going to define a new genre now. Maybe
no,
but,
and you don't have to feel like you're being held to any kind of standard, but I'm just saying in terms of like not knowing what's going to happen, like to me, that's exciting.
I agree. And that's kind of where it is right now. I'm like, I don't know. Like I am just for the first time at the most peace making music in like a long time. Like there's no, it needs to be a certain way. It's like I'm just like really just enjoying the process right now.
Hell
so
yeah.
that's good.
Well, I wanted to wind this down and just have a little fun. Before we get into that, is there anything else we haven't covered? Anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, no, we'll probably we'll bring some stuff out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I just wanted to like call out a couple moments that we've just been in the same room for over the years. I'm just going to throw them at you. I want to see your recollections of these moments.
Before you go into this, you have seriously been, like, we have been around each other at so many pivotal moments in my career. It's the craziest thing. From that South by Southwest thing you mentioned earlier to the last show of Josh and I together. You were there. And to just the weirdest thing. So I'm excited to see what you have to say. But
there's been a lot, man. There's been a lot. And the feeling is mutual. Like you've definitely been there for me at a lot of weird and important times too.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm glad we could share it. One of my favorites, I had to start with this, is our mutual encounter with the greatest hip hop group of all time, the Insane Clown Posse.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe you're at that too. Yes. So just a real quick thing. Like Josh and I, we were supposed to play Coachella for the first time in a long time. And we were like, everyone at Coachella brings a special guest out. And so I was like, what could they, like our management's like, all right, who do you guys want to bring out? Like, who's the most poppin', buzzing person, like to make you guys look cool? Because that's what everyone does. They bring out the cool person to make them seem bigger than
whoever
life.
They can afford.
And I was like, yo, no, fuck that. Let's be the first people to bring out Insane Clown Posse to Coachella. And so we tried to do it and it just didn't work. Like something with them touring or something, it just didn't line up. But we were in ICP's ear. And so they had a festival called the Gathering of the Juggalos, and they reversed and reached out to us. Do you guys want to be the first EDM act to play the Gathering? And I was like, let's get it. So we played the Gathering of the Juggalos.
And I remember when you announced that you were playing, I literally called you and I was just like, I'll see you there.
Yeah, just instantly. You already bought the ticket. Yeah. It's crazy.
I didn't even give you the option.
Yeah. Like a lot of people thought we were trolling with that, and we had a lot of backlash and stuff. But like, I love those uncomfortable situations, and I love that opportunity to be the first EDM dude to play the Gathering. And the thing about the Gathering, it's not like it was the first like EDM act to play like Bonnaroo. Like the festival is like the most cutthroat festival. Like everyone who plays it for the first time gets like just like treated like shit.
Yeah.
And so that's actually real quick side note. That's the one thing that I've always loved as a DJ is to be able to have a crowd that doesn't accept you and you win them over.
Yes.
That's like the best feeling ever. And like, I get to do that a lot in Vegas too, but like you start out with this crowd that just like, you're not vibing with, you're trying to figure out which lane to go. And then you get them. And that's what happened at the Gathering. Like at first we went on stage, they're throwing stuff at us, shooting fireworks at us.
Crazy. I remember Josh got hit with a rock.
Yeah, he said it was like a slingshot. Something hit him in the eye, like a rock hit him underneath his eye, split his eye open. And we were just getting like all this crazy stuff thrown at us and like all this hate. But at the end of the set, we like won everybody over. Everyone was moshing. It was like super duper lit and they were cheering and we were like chanting with us and stuff. But it went from like a crowd of just still people just being deadpan to like super lit.
Yeah.
And like those are the moments that I remember in my career.
100%. Yeah, I have so many of those. I think I'm addicted to those moments.
Yeah, it is. It is seriously an addiction, like for real.
And to set the scene for how weird of a thing this was, let's not forget that your opener was the band Puddle of Mud.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which,
man.
I mean, those lineups at the Gathering of the Juggalos, unbelievable. And then we walked around afterwards and there was, crazy like Mexican wrestling and just like all kinds of, it was like an open air drug market.
Dude,
like,
it's the gathering is
crazy.
not for the faint of heart.
And like, I'm not even saying anything that people don't already know. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I think I accidentally almost smoked crack there. And that's probably normal for that. Like, someone passed me a blunt and I hit it. I was like, you got to hit a blunt from a Juggalo. And so I hit the blunt. And then he said to his girl, wait, is that the one that's like, there's like a term, like some street term if there's crack in a blunt or some shit. And he's like, yo, is that the one that's dusted or something? Right. And she's like, no, it's not. And he's like, are you sure? And he's like, no. He's like, maybe it'd be crackling if it was. I was like, this one's not crackling. Man. But I just rolled the dice of this. So I don't think I smoked crack. I don't know. But
the other thing that amazed me, last thing about the gathering, how much nudity there was.
Yes.
It was like this weird hippie free love vibe that I was not expecting at all. There was just a lot of naked people walking around.
Yeah.
Like all like genders, sizes, body types. Like it was just out there. And that blew my mind.
There was also public, just people just going to the bathroom like straight up in the public. But the funny thing is, people who are nudist, and like me as a young kid, first like thinking about naked people, and I was like, oh, nudist community. I always thought like nudists were gonna be like the hottest thing ever. People who like are free love naked are never cut. It's like the saggiest of sag. It's like the worst.
It's like the same like I was about to say old wives' tale, but I don't think that really works in this situation.
They do look like old wives, though. That is definitely true.
But it's like that thing of like all the people who go to orgies are like none of the people you would want to have sex with.
Yes,
you know?
So true.
It's like one of life's great tragedies.
If you guys ever want a glimpse into it, watch Real Sex on HBO. That is like the grasp of that. Anyway.
But I had a great time at the gathering, by the way. I came away with like really good memories of that.
I did too, man. It was like, Josh got hit with the rock. There was a lot of like things that I spoke on that were kind of negative, but it's still, the thing that's really cool about that is the Insane Clown Posse and Juggalos, like it's their fan base. Juggalos is Insane Clown Posse's fan base. And ICP has built a community for these type of people to go to. Like they're like kind of outcast in society, like a lot of the kids that are like Juggalos and things like that. But they built this community for them to go to and have a good time. And at the end of the day, that's what all I care about is if you can have like, if you can find a bond with someone else that's similar to you and just like enjoy life together. So,
100%. So
cool.
Man. Yeah, I love. And do you know where they were that year is somewhere in Ohio.
Yeah.
Like that's where they're doing the Lost Lands Festival.
I know I think it's the same grounds.
Yeah,
right?
I think it is.
Yeah,
which is like such a funny connection back to DJ world.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that because I think you have to go to like Cleveland or Columbus or one of the C states or cities. But yeah, I know it's so weird now. Like they're doing Lost Lands there.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
So wild.
I mean, hey man, ICP groundbreakers.
Exactly, forward thinking for real.
All right, next thing I wanted to talk about is when Josh had a baby and had to come off the road for a minute, and you replaced him with Waka Flocka for a whole tour.
Yes.
How did that even happen, first of all? And then talk about the experience of like, because we talked earlier about sort of bringing the rap world into the EDM world and vice versa. But this is you literally physically taking somebody and putting them on that stage.
Man, yo, shout out Waka, man. That's my dude. Him and I became boys on that tour. Like he was probably one of the first dudes, him or Little John, that embraced dance music as like a thing. They like, shout out to those dudes. They're grinders, they're hustlers. They saw that there was something new and they adopted to it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Waka, he's always reached out to us and like always tried to work. And I think I've made officially 3 or 4 songs. One of them came out on a video game with him. And then I probably have like a dozen more other songs unfinished with Waka. Like he's just always down to work. He's always forward thinking. He's the type of dude that like there's nothing hinders him. He's like a big kid. Like, I don't know. I just,
you can tell, man, like, because there was one day where that tour came to whatever city I was in at the time, and I came over and I was hanging out with you, and you introduced me to Waka, and it was the first time I had met him, and I was like, yeah, what's up, man? I'm Willy. Good to meet you, whatever. And he just like took a step back. He's like, oh, your name's Willy? so can I give you a wet willy? That was the first thing he said to me. I was just like, you are an infant, sir.
Real quick side note, I'm going to take it to two things. So then we played an after party that night. And Waka
we have to talk about that.
Waka shows up to the after party with this is the first time I saw a bottle of LED glowing 1942. It had like, or no, it was like Clico or some shit. It was like it was one of those bottles that has the LED built into it.
Yeah.
And Waka's just carrying that around, turning up or whatever. Two things happened at the after party. First thing is it had the cryo cannons happening, like the like cryo that always goes off at the club.
Yeah, because we were going back to back.
Yeah, you and I were playing back to back, and during that time the cryo goes off and it just didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going. And then it, like, honestly, I thought it was going to stop and the crowd would just be frozen in place.
Yeah. Well, because I remember, like, at a certain point, you and I just looked at each other like, why is it still going?
Yeah.
And, like, you started, like, after a while, you couldn't see the crowd anymore. And I remember, like, I think pipes started, like, dripping.
Yeah.
In my mind, it went for a solid 5 minutes.
I think I mixed, like, 3 songs. We probably played, like, 3 or 4 songs together. And then finally it shuts off and, like, everyone was lit. It, like, kept going. I later heard that, like, I guess cryo sucks oxygen out of the room, so it probably wasn't good.
Maybe we just all got, like, giggly.
Yeah. And then I'm going to see if you can remember this, but I remember Waka was on stage turning up with us. We're DJing back and forth, and he said, "You're the most lit." What? Or didn't he, like, come up to you? What did he say to you?
So this was the end of the night. I'll never forget this. The very end of the night, we finished. We, like, tore the club down. We played for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I think we played till, like, everybody left, and we were just still there DJing. And at the end of the night, Waka, who had been drinking from that bottle the whole night, and he was, like, emceeing for us for a little bit. Yeah. And he came up to me and put his arm around my shoulder, and he, like, I won't say he whispered, but it was like a very low voice. And he just goes, "Yeah, I've never seen a Jew turn up that hard before." Which,
big facts.
Oh man, I fell over at that point, and he became my favorite person in the world at that point.
Dude, he's a really good human, man. There's, like, a lot of people in the industry you can kind of feel are out here for some other reason, and he's just been nothing but, like, just a good human being the whole way through. Yeah, shout out Waka, man.
Yeah,
I miss you. Hit me up.
100%, man. All right, I'm going to do one last one. We talked about this, I feel like, in our last conversation, but it's the greatest hits, so I'm going to do it.
Let's get it.
I think we got to talk about your encounter with Dougie Fresh.
Yes. Yes.
I can't think of a better way to wrap this up.
Yeah, no pun intended on the rap. So this is a cool thing. Like early trap days, they didn't know where to put us because, like, EDM didn't really accept the early incarnations of trap. Like, a little bit of festivals, EDM festivals had acts, and then the hip hop community was kind of trying to take a hold of it too. So we played this festival outside of DC, right?
Yeah.
What was the name of it?
Was that Trilectro?
Yes,
it was early Trilectro, right?
Yeah, which was such a cool concept. It was probably one of the only few hip hop and EDM festivals.
Yeah, well,
together.
And shout out to Trilectro, shout out to DC to BC, and all those, like, because I ended up hanging with those guys for years afterwards, and Trilectro became a big thing for years. Yeah. They've moved on to do other events. They're all doing big shit. Yeah. But yeah, that was a very forward-thinking festival.
No, it was, and they would combine an EDM act with a hip hop act and things like that. But in this case, they combined me with Dougie Fresh, who was opening for us. And
kind of like emceeing the whole event.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I mean, we came in, like, kind of toward the end. Maybe he was doing it the whole time, but he definitely did his performance right before us. It was supposed to be like a 10, 15-minute performance. He was supposed to do, like, I don't even know, beatbox and, like, beatbox over, like, Mona Lisa, Slick Rick or something. He did this little quick set, but he was supposed to introduce us, but he didn't know how to say our name. He didn't know who we were.
Right.
And so he's trying to remember it. You could feel like he was really struggling to, like, intro us.
Yeah, and he was kind of like, it's almost like a comedian, like you're sort of buying time, you know?
And he starts, like, he had his DJ run the beat back, like, 6 different times on, like, like some Slick Rick instrumental. And he's, like, starting to shout out his restaurant in New York. And he's like, he, like, chanted, he, like, had the crowd, like, do a call and response chant of the phone number or something, the address.
Or the address of the restaurant,
He's like 35, 17, West, Magnolia, Boulevard. Boulevard. I don't even know.
We're not making this up.
No,
by the
this
way.
is the realist. And so he's just like eating up into our set. So then now our set's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And like it's pushing the curfew back. Everything's getting all weird. He's like eating into this time. Finally, someone says to him, I don't know what it, somehow he ended, but you could just tell he was like milking it and trying to figure out how to intro us. And finally he did. And we get on, and curfew was probably like 10 minutes into our set or something like that. So we're super bass heavy EDM act. So the first few songs are just getting lit. The bass is going, it's going crazy. And then curfew hits at like midnight and they just cut off all the subs. Yeah. And so it's
just the subs.
Yeah, just the subs. So there's no bass for the last, whatever, 45 minutes of our set. And so it just was like, it went from lit to shit in like no time. And
but you know what? This is actually, I think this is the perfect note to end it on, because even though the subs were gone, I still remember the crowd didn't stop going crazy.
Yeah, true.
You know?
No, definitely.
It's like that moment when the lights come on in the club but nobody wants to leave yet.
Yeah, good call.
Like the crowd just kept going crazy because it was Hoodie Nation. It was like your people, you know?
Man.
So it almost didn't even matter. And I do remember that feeling really special too.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you've been able to carry, like from that stupid moment all the way through. Like that's the vibe I always associate you with, man. And I think that's why I'm stoked you're still here doing it, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah. And I'm going to continue to try to do this, man. I love what I do. So I'm going to keep doing this until I can't anymore.
100%, man. Well, this has been great. I think we're done.
Yeah.
Shout out Serato.
Yo, shout out Serato for real. I've been using you guys since way, way back. So thank you for doing this.
Still to this day, baby.
Yeah, for real. Cool.
Yeah, this was dope, man. Hopefully we can come back and do this again sometime.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Peace.